Hello, this tutorial will show you how to create an APA citation for an online journal article with a DOI. Let's get started. The parts of the citation are author, date, name of the journal article, name of the journal, volume, page numbers, and finally the DOI. Let's take a closer look at these parts. You'll notice in an APA citation that you only need to include the author's last names. After the last names, you'll include the author's initials. In this case, you'll follow it with a comma, and then the first initial of their first name, and then the first initial of their middle name. Do note that there is a space between these initials. If you're only able to identify a first name, simply putting the initial for that name is satisfactory. You will then follow this with the year of the journal article. Do note that this is followed by a period. Following the year, we have the name of the journal article. In APA, the capitalization is as follows. Capitalize the first word of the title, and then if you have a subtitle, which is identified with a colon, you'll capitalize the first word of the subtitle. Otherwise, all the major words are lowercase. The only exception to this is if you have a proper noun. For example, if you have someone's name, of course you will capitalize their name. The name of the article is followed by a period, and then we have the name of the journal itself, so the publication. What you'll notice about this is that all the major words are capitalized, and that the name of the journal is in itself italicized. Next we have the volume. Sometimes you'll see citations where you'll just have the volume number, and sometimes you'll see where you have the volume and the issue. I'm going to explain how to know when to use which form. Journal articles are either continuously paginated or paginated by issue, and this will impact how the citation is formatted. I'm going to explain how to recognize the difference and also how to format the citation. So if something is continuously paginated, that means when each issue comes out, the page numbering does not start over again. So for example, we have January, February, and March. And if the publication issue came out in January, if something is continuously paginated, it would go page 1 through 300. And then when the February edition comes out, it goes page 301 through 600. And so effectively, that's the pagination just continues through all the issues for one volume. And that's why we get really high page numbers sometimes for journal articles. Now, if something is continuously paginated, you will include the volume in italics, follow that by a comma, and then the page numbers for that journal article. Now, if something is paginated by issue, this means when each volume comes out, so for example, we have January, February, March again. For January, it goes page 1 through 30. But when February comes out, it also is page 1 through 30. So instead of continuing one line of page numbers, it starts over every issue that comes out. So therefore, the issue number is important to be able to find the individual article. So if I was trying to find an article on page 5, of volume 72, I'd have to know whether it was the January or the February issue. And so the issue number therefore becomes important to the citation. So how this is formatted is you include the volume number, which is in italics, and then right after that, no spaces, you'll include the issue number, not italicized. That will then be followed by a comma and the page numbers inclusive. Do note that there actually is a little space right there. And that's how you tell the difference between whether something is continuously paginated or paginated by issue. Now let's go back and look at the citations and I'll show you the difference. So this is an example of a journal article that is continuously paginated. So we notice that there are really high page numbers, and so we include volume 36 as italicized. And that's all we have to do. We do not have to include the issue number because it is perceived to be unnecessary information. So we have the volume 36, comma, page number inclusive, and then we follow that with a period. Now, if it was paginated by issue, we would include the name of the journal, a comma, the volume number in italics, the issue number not in italics, and then a comma, and then all the page numbers of the journal article. A quick rule of thumb is if you have low page numbers, it may very well be paginated by issue. If you are ever in doubt, do consult with a librarian and we will be able to help you determine whether it's continuously paginated or paginated by issue. One quick way to identify something that is continuously paginated, which means you don't have to include the issue number, is if you have something with really high page numbers. Usually that indicates that this is continuously paginated, and therefore the issue number is not necessary. The final piece of the APA citation with the DOI is to include the actual DOI. Usually you can find the DOI on the front face of the journal article, usually at the bottom or the top. Usually you'll see a group of bits of citation information, and then you'll usually see a number that starts with like a 10 dot, and it's kind of long. With APA 6th edition, all you need to include is a DOI, so notice that the D is lowercase, a colon, and then the DOI itself, so the 10 dot number. And that is what goes at the very end of your citation. Do note that there is not a period at the end of the DOI. Now there's another acceptable form of a DOI. In 2012, I believe it was, APA came out with a supplement that has another acceptable form for the DOI. And rather than starting with simply a DOI, this form starts with an http:// then dx.doi.org, then // and then the exact same 10 dot number appended to the end. One thing to note is if you put an HTTP in front of something, a lot of times that will turn it into a hyperlink, which turns it blue and underlined. You do not want the blue and underline to show. Finally, if you do not see a DOI for an article, please consult our video on how to create a citation for a journal article without a DOI, because there's a very specific form that you need to utilize. If you have any questions about APA citation formats, stop by the library's reference desk. We're located on the first floor of the Greg Graniteville Library. You can also find us on the web at library.usca.edu. Thanks for listening.